Bonjour! Aujourd'hui, nous parlons des métiers. Today, we're going to be talking about jobs or careers. And so, let's get started. Words that describe jobs or professions in French function like adjectives. So, what does this mean? You don't need an article. In English, we do. We say, he's a teacher. This guy right here. So, in French, we would say, il est professeur. So no article needed, no un or une or le or la used there. Another thing that we need to know is that we need to make the job title agree with the subject, just like we would an adjective. So most of the time, for to make adjectives feminine, we add an E. To make them plural, we add an S. So imagine, I don't have a picture, but imagine instead of just one guy right here, I had several teachers, and we could say ils sont professeurs, and we add an S on the end of professeur to match my plural subject here. Many professions already end in E. Things like photographe, comptable, and artiste, photographer, accountant, or artist. So because they already end in E, you're not going to add an extra one to make it feminine. You can just leave it as it is, but you do have to remember to add the S if you happen to have a plural subject, if we had a group of photographers or a group of artists, for example. But there are some words that don't follow this pattern of just adding an E to make things feminine, and you've seen that in learning other types of adjectives. Although these are nouns, they're functioning like adjectives in our sentence. So, for example, policier becomes policière, infirmier becomes infirmière. So, what we do is we add an accent grave to this E. See this accent here? And we add an extra E after that R. So policière, infirmière, instead of policier, infirmier. So there's a difference in the spelling and in the pronunciation. So obviously those are police officers and nurses. Some masculine forms that end in EUR change to an EUSE ending in the feminine form. So you might be familiar with other adjectives that have sort of followed this pattern in the past. But chanteur becomes chanteuse. Coiffeur becomes coiffeuse. Serveur becomes serveuse. So, obviously singers and hairstylists and servers. A few other words that end in EU are changed to an RICE ending. So here are two examples. We have acteur and actrice for actor and actress, facteur and factrice for a mailman or a woman. And then another note is that there are a few professions. Typically, these are professions that were generally held by men and not women in the past. They just don't have feminine forms in French from France specifically. So we say un professeur, whether we're talking about a man or a woman. Un médecin for a doctor, whether it's a man or a woman. Un écrivain for an author or a writer, whether that is a man or a woman. Now, in other countries where French is spoken, such as Canada or Belgium or Switzerland, other places around the world, have adopted feminine forms of these words, maybe by adding an E or changing things around or with the spelling. But if you were to look in a French dictionary, you would see, for example, that the word professeur is a masculine noun, regardless of who it applies to. So, this was just really meant to be a brief introduction to the professions, and I'm going to provide you with additional vocabulary lists and activities to learn a wider variety of vocabulary. But what I wanted you to see right here was just some of the spelling changes that you might encounter while learning these vocabulary words. So, continue on with the lesson. on our lesson page and let me know if you have any questions.